Hello class. Today we're going to start our first unit of Algebra 3-4 Honors, and this unit is going to be on inverses. An inverse, basically what it is the opposite of a function. So when you think of something like, say, going to school, I know right now we're not going to school, in class, but think about last year. In the morning when you would go to school, say that's a function, right? You go from your house to school. Well, the inverse of that function would be when you're going home. It would undo what you did. It would be from going to school back to home. So let's first start off by writing that down so we have it. An inverse is the opposite of a function. So it basically undoes a function. And each function will have a specific inverse to it. And there's a way to solve for it algebraically, which we will get into. But let's shift our focus to function notation for a bit, and then we'll get back into inverses. So in the past, we've written functions, say something like this. Y is equal to 3x plus 4. Right? It's just saying that y equals 3x plus 4. We have some function 3x plus 4, and whatever we get for the answer is y. But now I want to introduce function notation, and you may have seen it. I'm not sure. But instead of y, what we're going to write is f of x, or any other letter. Sometimes you see g of x, h of x, p of x, q of x, something like that. But instead of the y, we'd write f of x. So this would be written in function notation as f of x equals 3x plus 4. And I suppose we can write that as function notation. I'm throwing my pins all over the place. And this is the same thing. So whenever you see me writing f of x, just think of it as a y. It's the exact same thing. It's just kind of a more official way of writing mathematics. And we're just giving names to these different functions. And let's continue off that logic. And I told you that f of x is equal to y. Well, let's think about it. Do you remember that the x of our function is the input and that y is the output? In a function, we plug in an x and we get out a y. I mean, we can plug in a y and get out an x. Technically, that would be the inverse if we plug in a y and get the x. We're undoing it. But generally, we have an input, which we call x, and we get out a number, y. But what if I were to put numbers? You may see it like this as well. You may see something like f of 2 is equal to 4. And when I say you may see it, you will see it because you're about to do a worksheet on it. How is this read? In fact, that's the first part of your worksheet. It'll give you functions like this, and it'll ask, write in words what this function is saying. So what this is really saying is that when the input of function f is 2, its output is 4. So when the input of function f is 2, its output is 4. Likewise, if I were to have its inverse, we would say that the inverse, or the input of the inverse of function f is 2, its output is, or it would switch. Here, I will show you. So when we have something like this, say f of 2 is equal to 4. This is the function, and I'll label it in orange. This is the function. Its inverse, the inverse of that function, in function notation, we would write it like this. F of -1 in the exponent. Now, we don't say it's f of -1 in the exponent. We just think of this as f inverse. So if the input is 2 and the output is 4, they get switched when we're talking about the inverse because it undoes the things. It's the opposite. So f inverse of 4 would be equal to 2. That's essentially what it's saying. So how would we write that? How would we write this? Well, this would be when the input of f inverse is 4, its output is 2. So that's exactly how we would write it. And you'll see some of these on your worksheet as well. It'll have the inverse. So just write when the input of f inverse or g inverse or whatever we decide to name our function. Or if it's given to you, you have to keep the same name. Now let's take a look at what this looks like graphically. That's always important to kind of help us understand things, how they work. Let's see. Just draw a set of axes real quickly. And say we have some function like this. And I'm given some point, this right here, where the x is 4 and the y is 2. Remember, our vertical axis is our y and our horizontal axis is our x. So say if I have something like this, and we're given the point 4, 2, and I'm gonna name this function g of x, because we haven't dealt with g of x yet. And say I want to write it in function notation. So say I want to write this point in function notation. You're also going to have a question like this on your worksheet today. Well, all we have to do is just write it like this. G, that's the name of our function, g, of something is equal to something. Well, the input is 4, so it would be g of 4 is equal to our output, which is 2. And that's all you got to do there. So we actually covered all of the things that we will be doing on our worksheet today. We're going to have questions such as this, where we're given a point in function notation and we need to write out what it means. So it'll look like either one of these. We are then given a few questions that look like this, where we're given a graph and we're going to have to write it like this. And then we're given a, oh no wait, I'm losing it. And then we're going to be given ones where we were going to have to write the inverse, such as this. We'll be given something like this, and we'll have to write this, or vice versa. So let me know if you guys have any questions, and have a great day.